Hi guys, and welcome to another one of my ranking style videos. In these videos, what I do is pick a particular category and pull my top 10 favorite products from that particular category. We've done eyeshadow, we've done blushes, and today we're going to be looking at highlighter. So I've picked my top 10 favorite highlighters. It was really hard. And then we did an even more difficult step and actually ranked them from 10 to 1. And just a reminder, like even the highlighters that are in the number 10 spot, they're still absolutely beloved. Like these are some of my favorite highlighters in my collection. So none of these are dud products, but I definitely feel like I've ranked some higher than others just based off of preference or how frequently I reach for them. But I definitely love all of these. I love highlighter in general. Now, I wanted to call out too that we focused today just really on powder highlights. I do think I may do a cream highlighter version of this as well, because I do feel like I've got a decent number of cream highlighters that I'm very familiar with. And I don't know if I will do a top 10 or maybe it'll be a top 5. Maybe we'll do a top 5 cream bronzers, blushes, and highlighters and do a little combo cream video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about that. But for today's purposes, we are focusing in on the powder products in my collection. And I've also taken a cruelty-free swing through my collection. So I have some lovely highlighters that I purchased before I went cruelty-free late last year. And so for me, I still made the decision to use those up rather than throwing them away. So those products are in my collection. There are some lovely highlighters that I purchased back in the day from non-cruelty-free brands. But for today, and because I know a lot of you guys follow me because I have gone cruelty-free, I wanted to make sure that the top 10 products that I was talking about were cruelty-free, and finding cruelty-free options that fit into this sort of beloved category of highlighters was not a difficult feat to do by any stretch of the imagination. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the ranking. In the number 10 spot, this is a highlighter I absolutely love and adore. I have it ranked in the number 10 spot simply because I need to be prepared to really want a really blinding highlight on my skin. The highlighter I'm talking about is from the drugstore, or from Ulta Beauty rather. It is their Brilliant Diamond Face Illuminator. It is a pure white highlighter, and for someone who's very fair skinned, one of the things I realized was that some of the highlighters I bought early on were actually too deep for my skin tone, and so what it ended up looking like is like I had a brass stripe going down my cheek or a gold stripe on my cheek. It didn't look like my skin was glowing or lit from within. It really looked like I was wearing a gold stripe. So I went on the prowl to find a white highlighter because I thought, you know what, a white highlighter would be great because then I could mix it with highlighters that are too dark, or if I really want a very light, lit from within highlight, white's probably a great shade for me. And I wasn't wrong. This Ulta formula is actually beautiful. It is a powder highlight, but it blends into the skin incredibly well. It's super light and airy on the skin. It just glows and is really intense but doesn't look powdery. I just think this is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous formula. And it's funny, I bought this first and then I ended up finding a Becca their white, pure white highlighter. I think it's Pearl maybe, at like half off somewhere. And so I picked it up thinking, all right, well, I got this one from Ulta and the Becca one will quickly displace it. And what I found is that I actually prefer the formula and the look of this one from Ulta to the Becca highlight, and that's saying something. In fact, that Becca highlight is not in this countdown at all. So love this highlighter from Ulta Beauty. In the number 9 spot is a highlighter that is the definition of the word blinding. It is probably one of the most blinding highlights that is in my collection. Now, if you guys follow me, you know that super metallic foiled highlights are just not kind of my jam. I prefer highlights that look like my skin is glowy versus a stripe of highlighter has nestled onto my face. I make a bit of an exception for this one because I think the formula of this is so smooth and creamy and it blends into my skin without looking like I'm wearing an eyeshadow on the tops of my cheekbones, which is what I oftentimes feel some of those really metallic highlights look like. The other reason this one's kind of towards the bottom of my ranking here is because I really dislike this packaging. I just do. This is from Makeup Revolution. This is their Blushing Hearts Triple Baked Highlighter in Goddess of Faith. This is a gorgeous highlight, guys. It's absolutely gorgeous. Everything about this is gorgeous. If you are somebody who likes a really blinding, glow to the heavens sort of highlighter on your skin, this is your baby. It is so shiny and so blinding that you will get asked questions, what is on your face? It is a baked formula, but it's not one that feels super dry. In fact, I think it actually feels really nice and creamy to the touch. It blends out like a dream. Like, honestly, it's a gorgeous highlighter. The only reason this isn't higher up my list is just my preference for highlighters that are a little less blinding on a day-to-day basis. But if blinding highlighter is your cup of tea, then check out these triple baked highlighters from Makeup Revolution. I know some people love this box packaging. For me, I just think it's a little bulky and I prefer other styles, but I definitely can appreciate the cute factor of this as well. So just another factor to think about is in terms of whether or not you would want to purchase it. But yes, Goddess of Faith from Makeup Revolution, number 9. In the number 8 spot is a highlighter from Catrice. This is their 3D Glow highlighter, and this is in the shade Icy Glaze. This is a powder highlight, I believe, but it's one of the only powder highlights I found at the drugstore that really kind of performs and blends out like a baked gelée formula. And a baked gelée formula is, from my understanding, is more of a gel-based powder that when it's dried turns into a gelée. And so they tend to be a little smoother. They need a little bit of a stiffer brush oftentimes to pick up, but they tend to melt into the skin because of that gel texture that's been dried into a powder in a way that regular powder highlights sometimes can't, or even powder blushes. This is an incredibly shiny, blinding, almost white highlight that has just a hint of gold to it. Not so gold that on my skin it reads brassy the way that a lot of gold highlighters can. It just imparts this beautiful white gold to the tops of my cheekbones. It is also incredibly blinding. You can blend this out and not have it be quite as intense though, so I do appreciate that this is one of those highlights that can give me a more, I don't want to say natural because I do think this is a fairly blinding highlight, but it can be a little bit more diffused and less intense, or it can be built up to something that is completely blinding. And because this is close to the white, like that Ulta one, I just want to show you the difference in terms of shine intensity. So this one here is the Ulta one. You can see it's a little more translucent. It's a little less pure white, and it's a little less shiny than the Catrice one here, which is just purely blinding. So hopefully you guys can see kind of how these two whitish highlighters really differ in terms of intensity. In my number 7 spot is a highlighter that has been discontinued, but they've brought it back, and I don't know if they're going to bring it back again in the future. I kind of hope that this brand actually takes this limited edition product and turns it into a permanent range extension for them. But in my number 7 spot is the Amrezy highlighter from Anastasia. So this is a baked gelée formula for sure. This is a highlighter that honestly, when it first came out, I thought I wasn't going to be able to wear because I can't wear gold highlighter on my face at all. But this has almost a clear base to it, even though it has a sort of light gold undertone. The base of this highlighter is actually really, it's really clear. And so what you get is a lot of shine and not a lot of color. And so even on someone as fair as me, this reads as a lift from within sort of highlight that blends into my skin and doesn't look gold or brassy. I absolutely think this is a stunning highlight. I would love to see Anastasia take whatever the heck formula this was and do a whole range of colors, from champagnes to pinks to more bronzy shades to actually even a deeper gold for deeper skin tones and some rose gold. So she really hit onto something really unique and amazing here. And it's funny, for as long as this highlighter's been out, and they've brought it back once, and I don't know if they'll do it again, but for as long as it's been out, I've been waiting for, as I watch Anastasia launch announcements, for them to be like, here's the highlighters in this formula, and they haven't done it. And it seems like such an obvious ad for their brand. maybe sometime in the future. But in the meantime, in my number 7 spot is the Amrezy highlighter from Anastasia. In my number 6 spot is another Baked Gelée formula. And it's interesting because for as much as people liked the Baked Gelée formula in that Amrezy one, a lot of people were knocking the Baked Gelée formula in this product. And I never really understood it because I thought them to be kind of similar formulas in terms of shine intensity, in terms of the type of brush you need to use to pick it up. So I'm not really sure why these didn't quite catch on. In fact, anyway, let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is the Love Light highlighter in Blinded by the Light from Too Faced. This is, like I mentioned, a Baked Gelée formula. It's more of a light sort of, I mean, it's got a hint of pink to it, but it's more of a pure champagne color. In terms of application on the skin and intensity, it really does very similar things to the Amrezy one, but this one's a little bit more neutral, a little less gold, and like I said, just more of a pure champagne color on my skin. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I never quite understood why these were getting knocked for not being pigmented or not blending onto the skin. All I can think is that when these came out, maybe the larger beauty community wasn't as familiar with a true Baked Gelée formula and therefore didn't quite understand that a Baked Gelée is going to need probably a stiffer brush in order to pick it up. But once you get it picked up and blended onto the skin, it does something magical. So I absolutely love this highlighter and I continue to reach for it. It is still available on the Too Faced website, but I don't think it is on the Sephora and Ulta website. So I do think that probably means it's on its way out, but I love this little guy. All right, so now we come to my top 5 highlighters, and I feel like this NumberFive one, I'm taking a bit of a risk in terms of putting it in this spot because it is newer to my collection. But as I was swatching my highlighters and really looking at the ones that have impressed me, the ones that I think look beautiful on my skin, the ones that I reach for and I'm excited to reach for, just the ones that give me that fluttery feeling in my stomach, I couldn't not put this one in my collection. And as I swatched these and as I went to rank them, this one just landed in my number 5 spot. And frankly, I stand by it. So this is actually the Samantha March highlighter that she did with Ofra Cosmetics. This is the at March Beauty Word highlighter. As I put this video out, I'm not certain if it will still be available on the website. I'm not entirely sure. I think she thought it was going to end, and then the last time I checked, it was still out there. So if it is available, I will link it below. But regardless, what you have in here is 2 highlighters that were part of their existing collection. One is Star Island, which is the more yellow toned shade, and then the other one, which was Pillow Talk, which is the more pinky toned shade. It can be a very blinding highlighter. It doesn't look like you've got powder highlighter sitting on top of your skin. It really just melts into your skin and gives you the most beautiful, beautiful glow. I also really appreciate the versatility of this highlighter because I feel like I can go more warm, more pinky toned, and if I swirl it all together, I get this perfect neutral tone, a perfect neutral champagne. So I just think the design of this, the tones that were selected, and then also just the effect they give on the skin was perfect. And although this is newer to my collection, I know that this will be one that I reach for time and time again going forward. In my number 4 spot is a highlighter that's not quite as blinding. In fact, I would put this more in the natural category, but it's one of those ones that every time I use it, I put it on my skin and it just makes my skin look healthy. And it makes me look like I'm not really wearing a highlighter and I just have really naturally radiant skin. And because it's a little bit more natural, I don't have to be super precise with its application. I can buff this thing all over the tops of my cheeks, sometimes over the top of my blush. I can put it on the tip of my nose and it doesn't look like I'm, you know, Rudolph in highlighter form. I absolutely love just how this melts into my skin and looks so super natural. So this is the Cover FX Perfect Lighting Powder in the shade Moonlight. This was part of my Project Pan for 2018. And I really came to appreciate just how fantastic this highlighter was for everyday makeup. This is my go-to work travel highlighter, and it continues to be one that I go and grab for work purposes because I feel like it highlights my skin without being shockingly highlighted. And I just find that this color is absolutely perfect. It's not too pink, it's not too yellow, it's not too gold. It's really just a nice neutral shade. And it's funny, I swatched this on the back of my hand and I'm like, oh gosh, that really does nothing. And then for some reason, when I grab a highlighter brush and dust this on the tops of my cheekbones, it transforms my skin. So I love this little highlighter. It's absolutely beautiful. CoverFX does know what they're doing, I think, in terms of powder products. All right, so now we're into my top 3 highlighters. In the number 3 spot is from Pixi. It is their Glowy Gossomer Duo, and this is in the shade Combo Delicate Dew. This is probably the only Baked Gelée style highlighter, true Baked Gelée style highlighter that I found at the drugstore. I get the sense that Baked Gelée formulas must be a little bit more expensive to manufacture because I tend to only see them in higher priced products. And I know Pixi is drugstore, but also kind of not. It's kind of in between what I would consider to be drugstore and high-end. These formulas though are just stunning. Now I will say this shade here is a little dark for me, so I do, if I want to reach into this, I do need to mix this shade with it in order to make it workable, but blended together I absolutely feel like I have a highlight that doesn't lift the top of my cheekbones. It doesn't make the tops of my cheekbones look brighter. Instead, it kind of blends in with my skin tone. And I kind of like that because sometimes then, once again, it doesn't look like I'm wearing highlighter. It just makes my skin look really glowy and healthy. This is a very wet looking highlighter as well on the cheeks. A lot of it has to do with that Baked Gelée texture, but I do really feel like I get this very glossy, wet look to the tops of my cheeks, which I love. It's one of the things I like so much about a lot of the cream highlighters in my collection. And I feel sometimes like powder highlights can't quite replicate that like glossy wet look. This one absolutely can. I absolutely love this. I think it's a gorgeous formula. In the number 2 spot is another drugstore product. This one is from Milani. So this is their Strobelight Instant Glow Power in the shade Afterglow 01. This is their lightest shade. This powder is just gorgeous. It is so finely milled. It picks up on a brush beautifully. It buffs into the skin beautifully. And I have to say, it is like the perfect mix for me of like really glowy, but also still skin-like and not like metallic on my skin. And this shade is absolutely perfect for my skin tone. It's not too white, it's not too pink, it's not too gold. It's just this perfect neutral undertone that is so flattering on my skin tone. I have reached for this a ton. It's funny, for as much as I've used this, I still feel like the ridges in this little container are just like perfectly still there. I mean, I definitely can see some wear and tear on the top of this, but in general, this pattern stays really well. There's a myriad of different colors out there, so if this is too light for you, there will be another shade in this collection that works. I really like the little Milani packaging as well. I think the clear acrylic with the gold base is just really classy and kind of elevated at the drugstore. So this highlight is one of those ones that the first time I tried it, I was like, oh wow. Oh yeah, this is gorgeous. And it's one that I continue to reach for over and over and over again over the past several years that I've had it. In my number 1 spot is a highlighter that might be slightly cheating because I told you guys I was just focusing in on powder products and not any of my creams or liquid products. But I feel like this one, although it has a slight spring to its step, I don't really consider it to be cream or liquid. I never really have. It definitely has a bit of a bounce to it, and I'm probably giving it all away right now. Let's just hold it up. This is from Stila. This is their Heaven's Hue highlighter. This is the shade Kitten, and I cannot get enough of this highlighter. I do think it has kind of a putty-like texture. If you push down on it, I mean, you can kind of see a bit of a divot in there, but I apply this just like I would any other powder highlighter. I just use a stiffer brush, almost like I was dealing with a Baked Gelée texture. And what you get is something that just looks wet. Like, doesn't even look like highlighter. It just melds into your skin, buffs in beautifully, and it's glossy. Like, it gives such an editorial glossy look to the tops of your cheekbones. Kitten might be a shade that is a hint darker than a lot of people with my skin tone would reach for. And I would say that it is pretty close to being my skin tone. You don't really get a lot of lightening from this highlight, but I do feel like because it gives me that glossy effect, it once again just makes my skin look like it's healthy. It makes my skin look glossy and wet, and I'm all about that style of highlighter. Now, I did recently pick up a lighter shade, and I'm still too new to this to say whether or not it will displace Kitten, but I did want to swatch it for you just in case you were looking at it and you were like, that's a little too dark. They do a shade called Opulence, which is more of a pure white highlight. And this one it's the same texture. It definitely is a lot more intense simply because it is a lot brighter. So this one definitely reads on me as I use it like highlighter, in the sense that it's so much more brightening because it is that white shade than Kitten. Those two together might be my actual perfect shade there, if you can see that. Something about this formula just looks translucent and wet and glowy and so skin-like that it's bizarre. It really is an amazing formula. It's funny, I know I've talked to a number of you guys down in the comments who have this highlighter who also struggle to just fully elaborate on how beautiful this highlight is and how unique it is in a sea of highlighters out there. So I did want to kind of show you both shades. I definitely still think Kitten is probably my favorite color, but if you felt like Kitten was a little bit too dark for you, Opulent is absolutely beautiful, and it does the same thing in terms of the glossy effect that Kitten does. All right, guys, so that wraps us up. We have counted down from 10 to 1 my favorite highlighters. Let me know down in the comments, did any of your top 10 make it into my list? Do we have any shared loves? Or if not, let me know what highlighters just really call to you, which ones you absolutely love using. Like I mentioned, I will probably do a cream highlighter version here in the near future, but I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Look forward to chatting with you in the comments below. Bye.